It's time to start our final painting. I've laid in my painting. This is what we did last class. I've got my paints, I got everything I need, brushes, water, paper towels, my reference image. And essentially what I'm going to do now is just start trying to complete sections as I go. A method or approach to go about doing this is to paint from back to front, and generally in a landscape that is usually the part that's furthest in the back is your clouds and your sky, and then as you come down the picture, so that means you're generally painting back to front and also from top to bottom, because what's at the bottom is generally what's closest to us. So there's also a way to think of it as foreground, middle ground, and then background. Okay, so it kind of makes sense because it's a layered experience. So the clouds in the sky go behind the trees, right? And then the water is going on top of the land. Okay, so it kind of makes sense to work in this approach from back to front. So that means I'll probably also paint this before I paint this. But you can go back and forth. There's no given rule to that. I could still paint the trees and paint the sky. But there are chunks and pieces of the sky in between the trees that are peeking through. So it kind of makes sense to paint over this area in a way and over the trees, and therefore then paint the trees on top so the little flicks and things of the sky will peek through the branches. Not to say that you couldn't do one or the other in terms of, it just makes a little bit easier sometimes, because if you got the sky gray painted over this area, then you paint that on top, it makes it look nice and clean. Whereas in my practice painting and when I did the trees, I had to go back and paint some of the gray of the sky, but it didn't really match that gray. So then it looked kind of off. So anyway, so I'm going to start with the clouds. I'm going to kind of do this approach from back to front and from top to bottom. So as in my beginning, I did the painted style on the left side and the pencil style on the right side. I'm just going to not treat this as painting one or the other. I'm just going to paint it all as together. Okay? Alright. So the only advantage to this now is that I already have laid in this, or blocked it in as they call it, blocked it in here. So essentially what I'm going to have to do over here is kind of just do what I've done here, except I'm going to follow my pencil lines and shapes I've already marked there. And then I'll go in and really start refining things. Okay. Alright, so let me grab a brush that I think will work. I think I'll use this one, kind of a big round. And start laying that in. I don't know, this is definitely white. This is not necessarily white. So I'll go ahead and start putting some of this white over here. Evidently my brush was not clean. So I'll have to go back over that. I'll just go ahead and lay this in. Just remember, if you really want a white areas, you're probably going to have to paint over a couple of times to get it really white, because some of this gray that I'm painting over is actually bleeding into the white a little bit itself, therefore making it kind of a gray. Now I could do as I go is I could also work on the edges. I could just complete this cloud and work my way over that one. I could just kind of just go ahead and lay in the areas first. I guess I'll go ahead and do that. I'll go ahead and continue laying this in. Even though I'm following my pencil drawing I've laid in, I am going to refer to this as I go as well. Because I could have been off on my pencil drawing a little bit. Picking up some of this black on there, I guess. Or gray that's underneath. Okay, I can go back with white on top of that. If it needs to be lighter. Okay, so now I've kind of got that blocked in like I have over here. Maybe a little bit of cloud down here behind those trees. Might come a little bit bigger with that compared to what's there. I could always make it smaller, but then again, maybe I might like that. Maybe, you know. Now, if I don't like how this is different from this, I can always go back and adjust it with that sky gray again. Okay? Alright, so now I do want to try to complete my sky. So now I'm going to start really focusing on the edges, refine the shapes, and maybe even using the sky gray again. I may even have to paint all the mix up a gray like that sky gray again, and maybe paint it all if I go into touch up. So maybe I'm just going to go and do that now. Actually, I think I got some of that left over right here. So let me just mix up a little more of that though. Actually, the sky tends to get a little lighter as you come down, as you notice from here to here. And just for editing that a little bit, making it a little smaller. Got a little too big with that area. I don't know if that's getting a little darker. I really want it to. I could work on, edges as I go to kind of create these shapes and edges that I see. I hope all of this will dry uniform, not look splotchy. All right. So I feel pretty good about my shapes overall right now, so I'm going to go in and try to lighten and work on the edges a little bit. Add white where I think it needs to be really white. And try to blend that in so it's not very hard edged. Or it doesn't need to be hard edged. I may have to add white a couple of times where it's really white. That edge is a little softer than what I got there. Let's see if I can dry brush that a little bit. Or blend it. Trees come in right there. I'm pretty good about this. Okay, feel pretty good about that cloud. I think this one's standing out maybe a little too much. I just got rid of it. Don't want to do that. So I think about having a dirty plate sometimes. It can really mess with your values. Might be a good idea if you want to. You can even clean your plate at this point from some of the things we've been doing, just so you got a nice clean plate to start with. Looks pretty white right here, so all this looks fairly hard edged through here, so I gotta really do something about that. So maybe I can dry brush an edge on that. Really need to soften that up some. That's going to blend in a little bit. Really trying to look at how soft an edge is and the value. Now I might have to go back in like an area like this where that gray of the sky is different and really try to fix areas like that and see if I can get that to match. It's just so hard because the paint looks different when it's wet versus when it's dry. Really makes it difficult. So you're mixing a gray that's the same as something you're trying to match. I have very little paint on the brush. What I'm trying to do is trying to do a little dry brush around the edge of this, soften that up. And dry brush across that, maybe darken it up a little bit. Not sure how that's working, but we'll try it. Anything that has a sharp edge stands out. I mean, it just grabs your attention. It's just what our eye gravitates towards. So clouds just aren't that sharp in terms of their edges. Just softening the edge a little bit can really help lessen the attention it grabs. So you might find a way to paint clouds that works for you. You don't have to do it the way that I do it. As long as you come up with something that's fairly effective, that's all that matters. Sometimes it helps to just stop. Like right now, I'm looking at the computer screen, which is over here. I'm looking at the screen versus just what y'all are looking at right now. So seeing it on the screen versus seeing it here, and I'm trying to compare the two to see where I'm at right now in terms of how this is turning out. And it really helps sometimes to back away and look at it from a distance. And it's also really hard because I don't have the trees in just yet. But it does feel like it has quite a bit of kind of volume in 3D to it. And you get lost, when I'm referencing this to this, and trying to look at the two. It's definitely easy to kind of get lost at what you're looking at. This is dry. Oop, it's not dry. I thought it was dry. I really put a lot of paint on there. I'm really trying to get this white over here. So I can keep adding more white on there until it really ends up white. You can see just how wet that is. Now I've had quite a bit of white to that. So at some point I probably really, if I really want that white, this as white as that, I would have to really probably clean my brush off and then try then to put white on it. Okay. So I feel pretty good about this side right now. This is what I have right here. So now I'm going to attempt on this side. Okay. So I'm going to try up in this area. Kind of soften up the edge, a little bit of dry brushing. I might want to go darker up here. I like how dark that is and how stark that is. I darken that and keep it light down here, which is what I was going for originally. So I might go back and darken this all up once I kind of get everything kind of laid in. I could even go back and do that kind of last, kind of before I really get into the trees and really finalize the sky. So I'm okay if it's not white because a lot of this is not white. It's kind of this very uh, close to white. It's just an off white. So I need to reserve the whites for where it truly is white. This is sort of gray through here I'm trying to do right now. So I'm adding white directly on here, but you can see it does not end up white because it is like mixing with what's underneath to some extent. Plus my brush isn't completely clean. Okay. I like how that looks sometimes. They have two different values like next to each other. Oop. You got this kind of gray, then you got this kind of gray in between the white. It kind of gives that kind of dimensional look to it. Really don't like this dark through here and this light over here that I really need to do something about that. Kind of brings too much attention to itself. I think I'm going to paint over this and bring these grays in somehow. I brought that down a little too far. Maybe made that a little too big. I like how that just turned out. Really trying to focus on the edges. It's okay that it doesn't get completely white because, you know, if I make it too white, that's really going to probably create a hard edge. So I'm going to kind of build up my values kind of slowly. Okay, I feel pretty good about that. Mm. Hmm. Well, that's not really what I'm seeing right there, but I kind of like that. Okay. All right. So all I'm doing now is going in and adding white where I see I need it. Kind of bring up the value a little bit. Really going for these really subtle value shifts and whatever I can do to the edges. I know I've got issues around some of these edges just because the gray of the sky doesn't match anymore. And it's gotten dark at the edges of the clouds sometimes, which isn't good. It kind of creates sort of an outline. So I'm likely going to have to go back with a gray that's really sort of a solid gray and go in and really kind of hit those edges again. But I still have some work in here to resolve a little bit. I think I kind of at a point where I just need to let things dry. And then you can go back into it and shift around those kind of lights and darks a little bit. It's just really hard to do anything when it gets to be so wet to make things work. But to make, when you get it wet, you can really blend well. Though you can really create those kind of real lost edges. Alright. So I feel like this is a good start. A little too light down here. And then what I can do is come back and tweak things. I can do that in a second painting session. Okay. All right. So I feel pretty good about that overall. I do need to go back and do something with the gray of the sky versus this gray of the sky. This is, I'm really kind of torn between the two. I think I may have to wait on that though. I may go ahead and do it over here a little bit, but I may have to go back and work on that again once I get the trees laid in. Because once trees are laid in, that could also change how I feel about the sky. Um, okay. I was going to stop right there, but I just can't. That's just too dark. Really, I look at the blue sky over here and here. This is really a little bit darker than over here. As in my painting, though, this is a little lighter than over here. This kind of switched. So I got to do something about that. I just can't make a judgment on it if I didn't. So, in terms of knowing my progress, in terms of how I did, so I'm just going to attempt to make a gray that I guess I'll lighten this up a little bit. Make it a little closer to what I see here. Again, that's just going to be kind of hard to judge until this paint dries as well. Still looks darker than that. Let's see how light that dries when it actually dries. Oh yeah, it's dry. It's getting a bit lighter. This is where the hair dryer can come in handy. Now, one thing I really am going to need to look at once I get this really kind of complete is where are the lightest part of my clouds, okay? Right now, I know it's definitely that, and I think it's because the sky is darker up here too. It makes that look lighter. So I think when I kind of get my gray a little better up there, it'll also help in terms of being able to assess the values in terms of my sky. Just having a hard time reading it a little bit right now. I think that might need to get a little grayer right there, maybe a little darker, just right here. Okay, I was just going to change that, but then I got all involved in this other stuff. Well, I think I achieved what I wanted to. I think I got this pretty well matched, and we'll just see how that looks in the morning. In terms of just kind of sleep on it, see what I think tomorrow. Sort of some fresh eyes. And just see what I think then. Alright, call it quits.